What's up, family? It is Saturday, Leaders Are Readers Book Club time. I am excited to be back with you all. It's been 2 weeks since I've seen you. You've seen Denisha more recently than you have seen me, but it's been 2 weeks. So I'm happy to be back. So do me a favor off top, press the share button. We are going to have a um a big conversation today. We're going to talk about our book. We're going to talk about what's up, Amari Smith. How you doing, man? Do me a favor and press that share button, bro. I want all of your friends and everybody on your timeline to join us in this discussion. So we're going to talk about our book, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. But we got to have a little bit of conversation about what's going on in the political arena this week as well. So I'm excited. We're going to talk about the book, but we're going to start off talking about Joe Biden's pick for vice president, the beautiful black woman, Miss Kamala Harris. We're going to discuss it all. So press the share button. Let's get ready to get into this discussion and let us know where you are tuning in from. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. We got the one and only Denisha Bonner with us today. Sis, how are you doing?
I am excellent and excited to be here. Excited to be having this conversation today.
Good. I'm gonna ask you to talk to the people as I practice what I preach and press my share button real quick.
Right. So yeah, it's been a lot of good work this week. A lot of schools are going back to a lot of schools are starting back in session. So had a lot of conversations with parents and families about how they feel about sending their kids back or not being able to send their kids back. So been pretty busy this week, but thankful and glad to see everybody here. I know a lot of people are saying good morning or good afternoon, sharing whatnot. Hey, Ayana, good to see you. Hey, Adelia, good to see you.
Please let us know you're here. Yep, there goes the YLC fam. Awesome. We got North Carolina in the building. We got Ohio in the building. We got New York in the building. By default, we have headquarters. Atlanta is in the building as well. So come on in. These numbers are looking good. Come on in. All right, let's just start talking. This week, history was made, Denisha. I want to talk to you as a beautiful black sister. I want to talk to you. How did you feel? We're going to get to the book, but how did you feel when your phone, I don't know if you got the CNN app. What's up, Ayana? What's up, sis? CNN app. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but how did you find out? Let's start there. And then how did you feel about the news of who Joe Biden picked, Senator Kamala Harris, as his running mate as vice president? Tell me how you found out and how you feel.
I think I found out because usually when I'm not in session or consulting, my TV is on MSNBC. So I think I must have been a little late to the party because when I turned the TV on, it was just breaking news. And so that's how I found out. Or maybe actually I was scrolling on Facebook and turned to the TV. I just know my TV wasn't on like normally. Okay. And so I got excited when I saw it. I knew he had a lot of choices. One of the things, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, was throughout the weeks, you would see that big graphic of all the different women that he was considering. Mm-hmm. So if I had to look at it, say if there was 15, I would say at least half of them were women of color. So I knew we were about 50% or better chance of him picking a person of color. So I was really excited when I saw that it was Kamala. Now, I have to be honest, when she first put out her bid that she was running for president, I went and signed up at her website and I probably donated. From day one, and even watching the backlash that she got from her presidential bid from day one was always shocking to me. One of my sisters is a lawyer, so she had some feedback. So I listened to her feedback, but other than that, I just was really surprised at the response from her presidential announcement all the way up to currently. So
okay, awesome. Let me Pastor Dorian Cast. He's being a pastor right now. He reached out, said he had some things to take care of after church, a meeting. So he will not be joining us today, but he said he'll be back next week. So we're going to spread this discussion out a little bit. I want to hear from My ladies in the comments. I want to hear from my ladies in the comments section. How do you all feel as a black woman seeing a black woman chosen to be the vice presidential nominee to run alongside Joe Biden? We heard from Denisha, but y'all know how we get down here. We want this to be interactive. We want to go back and forth. Press the share button because we got more to discuss concerning this. But let me know in the comment section how you feel about it. And let me pause real quick. I'm excited and grateful. Let me just pause there but to say thank you to my brother and friend. I always make sure I want to show some love to our presider for allowing us to have this forum, to have this conversation. So salute to you, bro. Thank you so much. If you all have not been tuning into the revival that's been going down at New Zion, it's been some for real preaching. Elder Moore preached on Wednesday. Elder Marissa Farrell preached on Thursday. And then yesterday, Elder Superintendent Brian Nelson preached, destroyed that place last night. So some of you all have probably been watching, but let's go a little further. Let me hear in the comment section, how have you all felt? What has the excitement been like surrounding that? So we're going to wait for a few responses on that. I'm excited, and I think above all, this is a time for us to really understand that your vote matters. And we've talked a lot about it somewhat behind the scenes here at YLC, but I'm not sure if we've touched on it from a public platform, which is why I wanted to talk a little bit about it. That voting, I don't care how you feel. I don't care really what your view is. If you want to get Trump out of office, this is the best ticket to do so. We didn't discuss this, but let me throw this to you as well, Denisha. We're going to get into our book a little bit. Kanye West.
Okay.
I didn't prep for this one. Not because I was trying to catch you off guard, but because I just thought of it myself. What do you feel about his presidential run? Y'all educate me real quick. I'm not sure even if he filled out the proper paperwork or what, but what do you feel about that whole conversation?
So I think most of y'all know I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor and supervisor. So by education and practice, I am a diagnostician. So I think when I think about Kanye, I always have to go to the mental health piece. For a while, we've known that Kanye has had mental health issues. And the challenge that I have with even addressing this is it's too easy to dismiss the severity and the importance of addressing our mental health. So the sad part is I think this becomes a gimmick and a ploy for the opposing side. And by opposing side, Donald Trump and his camp versus Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and those who subscribe to both of those areas. So I think that, and I'll say this publicly so they'll know it was mine. We talk about how I want to have that conference for the talented and the troubled, or the talented yet troubled. And I think Kanye and many such like him fall into that category. We love their talent, but we don't understand their trouble. Or we love their talent, celebrate their talent, and leave them when their trouble shows up. We bash them, we can turn our back quickly from them. And I think that his mental health is a real factor. And, Kim Kardashian said, like, my husband needs help. And so his presidential run to me is nothing. It's not anything that I would take serious. I do think it's a great opportunity to continue to just cause confusion and distraction from what is really important. And what's important, as we've read in the new Jim Crow, is prison reform. What's important as we think about, sustainability of our economy during this pandemic. What's important as we think about job security and, institutionalized racism, systemic oppression, all of the above. I don't care that Kanye thinks he could be president. Just point blank. But I think that there are enough people who we start, I'll make it spiritual here, right? Peter's walking on water. It said that when he heard the noise of the wind, he looked away and
Well,
start.
come on and preach here. Come on and preach.
So I think for many of us, our looking away is the point of our sinking. Our looking away is the point of our distraction to our own demise. So for many of us, I think we need to not look away, whether it's about Kanye showing up, whether it's about is Kamala black enough or not, whether it's, all the other things that, that bait and switch that ultimately the enemy and the spiritual wickedness in high places wants us to focus on, that keeps us away from voting and that keeps us away from having practical solutions to these issues. That's what I see as Kanye and whether or not Kamala is black enough. I think it's all in a ploy.
Which she definitely is, which is why we want to encourage you to vote. We want to encourage you to vote, to exercise your right, and to exercise your power. Let's transition. Let's transition into our book, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. You and Pastor Cast did an amazing job 2 weeks ago. We were not here last week, but you guys did an amazing job 2 weeks ago. Look like we have some comments coming in here. Let me see here. Yeah, mental health challenges, but the brothers also. Okay. The industry, that could be a whole nother discussion. Demonic forces and all that. Y'all going to church tonight? I'm not going to church tonight, Brenda. But if you feel it, you can go ahead. That's one of the comments. Y'all going to church tonight? You can. You can. We got Miami, Florida in the building as well. All right, so let's transition to the book, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind.
So can I say something really quickly? Yeah. In our conversation 2 weeks ago, I think what it's very contextually in alignment with what we're seeing even now in America, right? So in our last couple of chapters, we were talking about how essentially people would not imagine some of those writers of these patristic fathers were Black because they maybe had Latin names or because they were impacted by Greek culture, Roman culture. And I think the same conversation we had last time we were all together was around, are these people considered African? Does this come from Africa because of what part of the continent they were in? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're still seeing 2,000 years later, even in the conversation around Kamala Harris and whoever else could have been selected to represent the Black voice. And so we talked in the last book club about essentially like the one drop rule. So one drop of African blood makes you African. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same argument that has been a divide and conquer and an argument of oppression and keeping people outside is, did you have one drop? Do you have one drop? And what we cannot afford to do, especially in this important election, is to fall into that same cycle and that same trap of, is it Black enough? Is it good enough? Is it right enough? Is it blank enough? And right. That's what he was talking about in those other chapters of the book.
And I think even to take it a step further, in this particular election, I don't think it's an issue of what it is, mm-hmm. as much as it is rejoicing over what it is not. Mm-hmm. It is mm-hmm. not the current administration. It is right. not the current mindset and ideologies and thought processes that are currently occupying the White House. So I think even in response to that, it's not about what it is. It's at a bare minimum, I'm grateful for what it is not. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. But let's get into the book. Let's get into the book. How Africa.
Yes, you can download it in Kindle. I think that's the only way you can get it at this point.
Actually, on the flyer, it says the only way. I looked it up on Amazon because I was trying to download my Kindle reader this morning. And I guess it is available now. When we first started, I tried to order the book and it said I wasn't going to get it until like November something. So I don't know what that was about. It may have been high COVID time to where, everything was just extremely backed up. But I just looked and you could get it. It was like August 20 something is when it said it could have got there. So let's dive into this. You sent me some notes. I have some things that are highlighted. Chapter 5, I highlighted that first paragraph that I want to read, and we can start the discussion here and kind of move forward. It says, European historical scholarship gave us form criticism, which intends to show how oral tradition shaped the history of the transmission of written text. It has been applied with intense imagination in the narratives of the transition of faith from Asia to Europe. But that same form criticism was used to dismiss almost entirely the viability of oral traditions in Africa. This is why the political uses and prejudices of form criticism need now to be carefully analyzed. When I read this opening paragraph, I began to laugh because of what Dorian said to me when I somewhat agreed that, hey, oral tradition, it does not carry the same weight as written tradition. But starting off here in the chapter entitled Temptations, he's basically saying that same form criticism was used to really dismiss a lot of the African traditions or the African culture. But that same form is how some of the Europeans were able to get their written text. It came down from a oral tradition or a verbal kind of telling from one to another to get to the written place. That was a bit frustrating because I feel like even Denisha, with me doing this with you all, I feel like each book my eyes get like I opened up a little bit more. But what are your thoughts on that statement? And just really, as we just deal with history, how it seems to be used when I'm looking for a word. Convenient, right? So certain things, it's convenient to view this way, but when it comes to Black people, it's dismissive or just questions. Even as we were dealing with Senator Kamala Harris, questions and why. So can you talk to us about that for a little bit?
Sure. If you go down just a little bit more, the line says, in Africa, suddenly the rules of the game change and oral tradition is ruled out. I found myself feeling some of the probably same things that you felt, which is anger and side eye. That's not an emotion, but there's that's a description of probably the emotion. And so I think
pause. Let's pause real quick. Okay. Is side eye an emotion? Let us know in the comment section as she continues to be educated and as amazing and smart and intellectual as she is. Let's deal with some urban colloquialisms real quick. Is side eye? Is that is that an emotion? Is side eye an emotion? But go ahead.
Nah. But I think we all know what we mean when we say side eye. Like, really? So that emotion, that disbelief, that frustration, that feeling. For me, one of my strongest emotions I don't like is disrespect. Like, y'all just gonna disrespect us like that? So here the rules this over here. Now someone said in our comments, there's a discrepancy. So the rules work for certain groups, for certain and we talked about this before, the system is broken. Nope, the system is really intact. The system does what it's supposed to do. The system just was never designed for certain people. So as Juice Dude says, side eye is definitely an emotion. And it's one of the schools of thought is a collective consciousness. We all know what we mean when we say it. So the side eye that I was looking at or feeling when I was reading this statement about, it's ironic that the rules can change when it comes to giving credence to Black voices. And I think, again, that's the power of this book that our author is letting us know. There needs to be more credence given to the Black voices that have already been, and the call for Black voices, young African scholars, as he often says, that we need to come back to our work, come back to this call to keep giving credibility to this work, to this understanding, and to what the Spirit of God is doing in the earth.
I love it. Another point that I have underlined here that I'm going to throw it to you for a little bit. It says, it is incorrect to portray Africa to the world as if Africa has always been a bit lacking in intellectual toughness and slow to awaken to Western achievements. The irony is that these Western achievements themselves have often been profoundly indebted to Africa before they became accepted in Europe. Reading this, I was just like, man, reading this book two things. One, I'm going to have to read it again very slow. Research some of these individuals, so forth and so on. But even this book has given me another level of pride in being Black, that I thought I knew and I was grateful for, but really even understanding, like, man, we smart. Like, I almost feel like we started this.
We did. Let me calm down. Hold on. It's not an almost. We did.
We did, and I really want to, and I hope as we're reading this book together, I hope many of you are really feeling the same, to want to read more books like this, dig deeper, research more. But just reading, just kind of the first portion of this particular chapter, it just really, once again, I go back to the same example, opening my eyes to how amazing we as Black people are. And further, well, look, I'm gonna let you respond, and then, because further on in this chapter, I felt a certain way about something, but go ahead.
Well, no, I think that what you're saying is really powerful. There's another quote that I highlighted, and it's hard to tell where it is on Kindle, but it says, if Africans forget that these ideas were first refined and developed out of Africa, they put themselves at an unnecessary disadvantage. And the question that I want to put out for you and our listening audience, our viewing audience, is, what is the value of this system? What is the value of us not knowing? What is the value in us not being aware? What is the value in us neglecting? And even as Paul told Timothy, neglect not the gift, right? What is the value when we lose track and lose sight of who we are? So, Lewis, you keep talking about how you read this book and it's like a reawakening and an awareness, a reinvigoration, or just maybe a first introduction. Like, wow, we really are better than we think we are. But the question is, what is the value if for other people when we don't? How do they win? And I think that's something that we have to pay attention to, why the system is such, whether that's, again, from a systemic justice or a religious practice. Why is there value in certain people having ignorance or certain people being in the dark?
I think my man Juice Dude put it in the comment section. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Now, with that said, I remember, I may have told the story before. I don't want to give the name because I don't want to embarrass the young man, but I was talking to a pastor. I'll say it that way. I was talking to a pastor, and this pastor was dealing with their organ player.
Okay.
And what this pastor told the organ player was, he said, son, you don't know what you don't know. And I remember being like, what? And essentially what he was saying, because this particular person thought they knew it all, thought they knew how to run a church, but he said, son, you don't know what. Basically he was saying, you're so ignorant that you don't know how ignorant you are. Like you're so without knowledge. Like you don't know what you don't. And I feel like part of that is, unfortunately, because of, not trying to be super deep or political, because of the system, our school system, the way things are taught. Well, let's pause there. I think the school system has a large part to play in that, because of what we're taught and what we think are foundational truths are not foundational truths. Even as we go back to Christopher Columbus, I feel like really within about 2 to 3 years, a true light has been shed on Christopher Columbus and some of the horrific things that he's done. I grew up celebrating, loving, having my little Thanksgiving with my little, the Indians and the little turkey. And so Christopher, so just using that, Christopher Columbus was this social studies hero, an amazing man, and he found this place. And then when you dig deeper, and so that was the foundational truth. Christopher Columbus, this hero, this amazing man, he sailed over the ocean blue in
1492.
Yeah, all that. But then as you grow, you mature and you learn, you understand, okay, well, we can give him credit of sailing and finding. Some people even say that he found this by accident. But the murder, the lie, the manipulation, the so when you deal with all that, it's like, so this foundational. So I really feel like part of our ignorance is wrapped in what we think is a foundational truth is not really a foundational truth. And when you begin to question that, it's not that I tell myself, it's not that others tell you you're wrong. It's that you yourself are having a hard time believing truth, even when you know it's truth, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think the power of this book, like you said, some names and even concepts that I find myself having to Google and research and go deeper, which sometimes it prevents me from moving along in the book because I'm trying to make sure I understand the concept. Like, what is form criticism? I don't know if I knew what that was prior, and I'm an English major, but understanding what he's talking about has been so helpful to even go back and rethink even Sunday morning sermons, right? Like, what are we looking at and how are we teaching? And he talks a lot about exegesis, and he talks a lot about the hermeneutics of our approach to faith and how we share our faith. And I think if we don't understand even the systemic oppression that is in religion, another book I started reading is called White Too Long. And it's basically how white.
I'm like, I heard that. Oh, you told me about that book.
Yeah, like how, hey, Lincoln, how white supremacy has not only been allowed by Christianity, but supports it, right? So if we don't go back and look at where we are and look at where this started, I always say all the time, things don't go wrong, they start wrong. So this book asks us to go back to the start of Christianity, but the real start, not the start that they told us was the beginning. Because for most people, especially those who have a challenge with Christianity and feeling like it's the white man's religion, which is why we're having this whole conversation, for many of us, we thought the first time that Christ was introduced in the continent of Africa was when
missionaries.
Right, the missionaries. But when we look at this, we are able to go back and see, like, no, this started with Origin, and it started with Augustine, and it started with Mark, and it started with, I mean, we always love to talk about Acts 8, the Ethiopian eunuch that was saved in the desert. The Ethiopian eunuch. But we throw that all away.
It's right there. It's right there for him. It's right there.
Right? We throw it away, and Philip got translated, and we go right to Paul. But we don't pay attention that they were in Ethiopia when this was happening. So when was the real start versus what was the start that they told us? When was the truth? And really, if we're not, if we're being honest, we're lazy. We're lazy Christians. We like the, turn around 5 times, get your miracle. And one thing God told me before, if we would follow the methods of God, we wouldn't need the miracles of God. Reading Proverbs, for example, that's the methods of God. It talks about going to bed early, getting up early, working hard, storing up in the summer. Because when the getting your harvest, the ant, pay attention to the story, like all of those things, right? But because usually as Christians, we don't go back and do the study. We come to our faith spaces and get information to live on versus learning how to go and find the information ourselves, such as reading these types of books and understanding, like, wait a minute. And that's why our side eye is strong, because we're realizing, like, all this time we thought we knew, all this time we thought we had it, when the reality is we had what they gave us. Even as slaves in America, they presented an idea of the gospel to us. They told us our quote unquote history. And sadly enough, because many of us have lost our oral traditions of just, our roots in America, were you from Ghana? Were you from Gullah Island? Were you from this tribe? Were you from this, part of Africa? We don't have that. So we don't even know the real richness of African study and thought. And now here we are reclaiming that, rediscovering it. And I think that's a powerful thing.
There's 2 things God dealt with me this week. There were some things that I wanted to do. And the first thing God told me, he said, when you're in process, avoid the spotlight. That's a whole nother discussion. God, that's good. There were some things I wanted to do. I'm trying to do that. I'm going to do. God was like, wait, son, when you're in process, avoid the spotlight. I was like, ooh, that's going. We'll talk about that offline, Denisha. I said it on here so they know it came from me first. we have a brother sister. Don't you preach that till I do.
We share it, right?
But the second thing that he really challenged me with this week was the amount of time that I spend reading, and how part of this process I need to increase my reading intake. And it's not just the Bible, right? I read that. I love that. I study that. But even literature like this and other things that are more topic kind of centered, and really kind of just the digging into. So I was saying that to say I am guilty of at times being a lazy Christian, right? And just taking it from what I heard or what was said. Even let's tie this back into the vice president nominee this week. I was so mad at Senator Kamala Harris for something that she did not do.
Okay.
I was so mad at her for being the prosecutor with the whole Fruitville Station thing went down. And then I just Googled, like, let me just, like, this is what I saw the movie and realized it wasn't in her ear. Like, realized that whole meme was a lie. Now, had I been just the lazy guy, I would have reposted. I'll read it. But I try to be deep. I saw it. It just didn't sit right with my spirit. I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying it was the Holy Ghost or if it was common sense.
Or both.
And I just threw it in there and realized, like, oh, this whole thing was a hoax. It was a lie. That's not true. And it really kind of hit me like, man, it's about to be some crazy attacks in this whole political time. But really taking the extra step to actually read and the importance, the need. Let's go on a rabbit trail a little bit. Even in order for us to be effective in evangelizing to my generation, we're going to have to be well-read, well-studied. We're going to have to understand not just scripture, current events. We're going to be able to have to witness to people, not just by being an entrepreneur, but telling them, certain principles and keys we use. We're going to be able to have to sit down and discuss why we voted this way or why we have an issue with this political person. So, like, I was talking this week about somebody about Democrat and Republican, and we got into the whole thing about abortion and pro-rights, pro-life, pro-choice, gay marriage, and so forth. And I told him, part of the issue is that you guys have made Christianity into a two-issue party.
Yeah.
What about feeding the poor and clothing the naked and what? So that foundational truth of all Christians, that's jacked up because they have certain greed and lies that do not line up with but I was able to talk to and have a conversation with this individual, not because I quoted John 3:16, but because I'm not a political pundit, I'm not an expert, but I was just because this little arena. So we're going to have to be well-read, well-studied, educated, whether that's in a formal education or just reading your newspaper, reading a book, to be able to witness effectively to this upcoming generation.
So you said a couple of great, you said a lot of great things, but a couple of things I want
to I'll take the love.
When you in process, avoid the spotlight. That's a big one, but we're going to leave that for another book. But when you said that you saw something and you Googled it, right? First thing we have to do, and people misquote the scripture, but we good for saying, try the spirit by the spirit. It just says, try the spirit, see whether it be a God. But actually checking into things, right? Checking the things and make sure, because what a lot of us are guilty of is reposting and resharing. And this is pride, and I own it. But one of the things I hate to do is be embarrassed. And I hate for somebody to come back and be like, you said. So before I see something and I like it, or I think that sounds about right, but let me go back and check and make sure that it's right. I'll go research it. And we have to do the same thing when it comes to matters of faith around, I heard this preacher say, or I saw this post, or I saw this Facebook Live. Before you agree with it or before you accept it in as truth, research it. the same is true when it comes to us, our witness, our string to other people, whether it is about scripture or about life issues. People are going to be Googling what we're talking about. People are going to be researching. And I know there's a lot of research around why millennials and different age groups stop going to church or aren't as in love with the things of God as other generations. And I believe one of the reasons is because people have more access to information. And there's a lot of reasons when people talk about why they have walked away from the church, because in the middle of a sermon, if they're like me, I'm sitting there Googling what they're talking about to even know that this is not even what this scripture's meant in context, or this is another thought about it. And if we're going to be effective leaders, like you said, we have to really have that process time, which is not spotlight time, but that process time, like Paul told Timothy, study to show yourself approved. First of all, do I know that this is what God is saying? Mm-hmm. So other people can say, yep, this is what God is saying, and this is what God is speaking. And so I think as leaders and young leaders, we really have to do better with broadening our horizons around research, because there's a whole world out there that are quick to say, well, actually, it's such and such and such and such, or actually, this is the truth. And I've been victim of having to take down a post before. Like, I've like, well, let me take this down because this is actually not accurate. So not just our social media posts, but how we live and how we walk out our spirituality. We have to really make sure that we know what we know, because as your pastor friend said, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But the more we know it, the more we learn it, the less that's likely to happen.
Listen, do me a favor, press that share button. We got about 15 more minutes. We're about to turn the corner a little bit. And I really want to engage you all. Denisha, something that you said about Googling and making sure that we're saying what we're saying is true. I only Google the stuff that I like. So how embarrassing would it be for a preacher to say a nugget that I think is just, no, I had no idea that, in the original language, in the original text, it meant, and then I Google it and realized
it don't even work.
And like you said, I do not like to be embarrassed. Let's talk about this for a little bit.
Hold on. That's too good. That's too good to leave on the table. Only Googling what you like. And you and I have had this conversation a lot of times around how we can speak to our voices, or we can speak to voices that are similar in our thought. Like, I'll say, how would your message change if you had to preach that in a whole different demographic type conversation? And I think sometimes in our intellectual search, we have found a way to pull out something that makes sense to us, but it don't make sense in the text. It doesn't make sense in the original language. And if all we do is pick up on the pieces that we like, we're no better than the side of the argument that is white supremacist. This is our belief system. This is what we think. Because I saw this meme where this guy was holding up a sign and everything about his life was wrong. And the caption said, they can't possibly think they're the best race. But he did. He thought in his mind it was right. The Bible said like that. There's a way that seems right into a man. So if you're only Googling the thing that you like, if you're only researching to take it further, because really what we're doing is researching it so we can repreach it.
In our own way. Say it differently so y'all, that's exactly right.
Thinking like, this is what God is saying, which again, now we're no better than the people who we're reading about. This is my book, y'all. There's no different than the people we're reading about, because they said they denied the oral traditions of Africa, the forum traditions of Africa, only when it got repackaged and in a way that was palatable for them, white supremacists, were they able now to accept it. And sadly enough, we've done the same thing.
That's even what the repackaging of the gospel looks like. Because if you can't preach it in Africa, is it really the gospel? And I know that's one of the things that Bishop Noel Jones said. He really challenged me. He did a preaching 101, and he said the issue is that we've been preaching Americanism. We have not been preaching the gospel. Because if your sermon only works in certain spots, then it's not the gospel.
Right.
is not the gospel. Now let's turn a little bit because we got about. That's I know. Listen, we got.
I just said it's not the gospel, it's culture, and I felt that like,
ooh,
yeah, you missed it.
Preaching class, not us, but somebody else in our YLC community. This is the part where I was enjoying the read. This is when I got a little salty.
Okay.
When I read this piece here, and I'll explain why. It says the commitment to use early African sources does not misplace or deny the use of ecumenical sources.
Okay.
Seems very, 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 very harmless. I'm going to read it again. The use of early African source does not misplace or deny the full use of ecumenical sources.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I got frustrated, and really that whole
segment.
What do you say?
What segment are you in?
I am in the Catholic limits of afrocentrism. Sorry.
Okay.
The Catholic limits of afrocentrism.
Okay.
The reason I like that, because I feel like every time Black people give truth, we have to give a disclaimer.
Okay.
And that's what like now what I mean is, it's like, no, if it's the truth, if what we're saying is true, and I guess the point that he was trying to make is we're not saying that it's only this this way or this group, how many people played a part in the spread of Christianity, the gospel, yada, yada, yada. But I dislike the fact that whenever Black people speak truth, we have to give a disclaimer. Now, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but what I'm saying is, so that was that sparked, it may be something in me that the Lord needs to burn away, and I need to mature, and it needs to be purged out of my system. Maybe, but am I wrong for feeling that type of way? Or did I totally miss this point? What do you think about having to say or to give a disclaimer about something?
I have a thought, but I got to ask you this question first. When you said whenever we start to speak truth, we got to give a disclaimer. When you're reading that, are you including the author in the we of this?
No, I'm talking about us. Now, the author, do you know the author's white?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure you knew.
Oh, yeah, the author's white. I'm talking as far as, I'm saying that because as the truth that he is speaking on behalf of Black people.
Yeah, I just wanted to check.
I feel like whenever the truth is pro-Black, whenever the truth benefits Black people, whenever the truth shines light on our intellect, how amazing we are, whenever a truth sheds light on a lie, it's almost like there has to be a disclaimer given.
Yeah, so to your question, I will say this chapter rubbed me the wrong way. So if God got to burn some stuff away in you, he got to burn some stuff away in me.
Pray for us, Lord.
Because when I was reading, I'm like, I felt like he was backpedaling, right? So
maybe that's what I was picking up on. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're right. That's why I put in the notes like afrocentrism is not the way. Because I'm like, wait, what's he saying now? Because I felt like, but I think I got it. So I definitely, I feel like we do have to give these disclaimers. And I don't think we should, but I feel like, and I don't know, I'd love to hear from our audience. I feel like probably as most of our Black viewers, we go into spaces and we often have to either give a disclaimer or we have to justify or we have to give some kind of thing that makes it that much more palatable. And it's the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down because people aren't ready to embrace, Paul talked about like that, like milk versus meat. You should be able to deal with the meat. Now we got to give you the milk. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there is a lot of that as it relates to how we show up, and we got to give the disclaimer. And if I'm being honest, we talked about like what we were tired of. I'm tired of having to do that. I'm tired of having to have the argument about why Kamala Harris is a good choice. I'm tired of having to have the argument about Denise is really nice. I know she's smart, but she's nice. Like, and having to be humble before someone can hear what you have to say. So I felt like that when I read it, and I definitely can see that. But what I do think he was saying is you got to find the middle. it's not all. He talks about ecumenical a lot. He talks about the real definition of Catholic, which means universal. He talks, and you were just speaking that about, can you preach it in Africa versus can you preach it in America? I think when we go into afrocentrism, we can miss out the rest of the world. One of our YLC sisters put up a post this week. She said, God still loves the people you don't like.
Mm-hmm. That hurt. I didn't like reading that.
Careful. Our afrocentrism can block out people who still need the gospel.
Okay.
And that's what I think he was trying to say in this chapter.
Does it block them out because they can't receive from a dashiki preaching Jesus? Or does it block them out because they don't feel a part of it?
And maybe a little bit of both. Okay. I don't know.
what I think we have to have more conversations with people who are in different spaces, like, so having even more voices and not just black, white voices. You know, when I would teach cultural competency, we always had to have the conversation that it's not just black and white. There are so many other demographics that we don't think about when we think about racism, or we don't think about when we think about marginalized, disenfranchised people and people who are systemically and systematically oppressed. Mm-hmm. So I think that it could be the dashiki Jesus, or it could be, I don't want the white Jesus, but I don't want the black power Jesus either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, because Jesus, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think it could be both. And sometimes the afrocentrism, and I had to be delivered from this myself, is very all or nothing and as harmful as white supremacy.
So you're saying it's more of a exact opposite as much as it is a middle ground field truth.
Correct. So I went hard from, I know white supremacy is wrong. So here we go, all or nothing, blackness versus like, where are we here where there's integration of both? You know, we always talk about two things being true at the same time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, where is the yin and the yang? And even when we think about other cultures, they have that. I mean, yin and the yang is not it's an Eastern philosophy. Cultures that come from more of the Eastern parts of the world, they have a dialectical thinking that we don't have. We are very dualistic. We are very dialectical. We are very binary in our thinking. And many other places in the world don't. They have more of an integrated thought process. Mm-hmm. So black dashiki preaching Jesus doesn't fit. But you know the sad part? Buddha fits. Confucius fits. Because Buddha says hold space for everything. Confucius says there's light in everything, right? And I'm not saying that we ascribe to those philosophies, but what I am saying is we can't be so drastic, white is right, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, that we forget all the other spaces in the middle. Because namaste, for example, is a word that says the God in me recognizes the God in you. I bow to the God. Like, you know, we don't know how to do that. And so Afrocentrism, based on what I think our author is saying, really causes us to have too much of a, you know, this is all I got, and not seeing anybody else's viewpoint or worldview. And I think same thing with white supremacy.
No, I think that helps me. That helps me because I feel like you can become so frustrated with the lies and with the and with the system that you just go, so you know what? Since you've been lying to me, instead of getting truth, I want to get empowered to teach you a lesson. Or and really, truth is somewhere in that healthy, as you say, that healthy middle. Two things can be right. Okay, listen.
Let me rephrase it. Two things can be true. Right and true aren't the same thing.
See, this is why I have you on here for me. This is why I have you on. Rondell Hooker said you helped him. Mr. West said that we have to find the middle. Miss Swan said excellent talk. This is good. This is good. This is good.
And somebody went to college too, so we want to celebrate Juice Dude. He went to college. Juice Dude went to college, so I just want. He said he finally took his tail to college, so I wanted to celebrate him as well too.
Man, I missed that comment, but we definitely want to celebrate that, especially as we get ready to go back to school. It's 1:58. We got 2 minutes. We can go over a little bit, but is there something that you want to discuss out of this chapter that we have not yet discussed? I want to give you, like I've been driving it for a bit, but is there anything that you want to discuss or to bring out?
There's a quote, I don't know what page it's on, but it says, if African Christians are going to entrust their children to Christianity, they must have confidence that Christianity is trustworthy, that Christianity is true and truly African, and not fundamentally alien to the African spirit. I thought that was really important when we talk about young leaders, and we have in some of our other conversations, you talked about like your children seeing pictures of Jesus and things like that. And I think that when we think about how this legacy happens in young leaders, you know, our founder and visionary Elder Moore talks a lot about, you know, his roots and what he saw and experienced, and then also passing that down. And I think that for many people, when we think about this young leaders movement and the passing down of the mantle, the changing of the guard, the stepping into place, all of those different things, we have to really have the boundary, the foundation that this is good, not just because I'm fifth generation Pentecostal good, but because I really know and understand why. Like, I think there are a lot of cultural things that we have passed down, but there's not a lot of academic things that we have passed down that connect to the cultural things. Why do we do what we do? And I love this quote where it says, they have to have the confidence that it's trustworthy. And that argument around, is this the white man's religion? That's the slave master's religion. That's an argument that has to continue to be dismantled. But we have to make sure that we do our work around it, because I know there are some things that I can't say to my kids that you have to do because that's what they told me we had to do. I had to go back and find why we have to do this. You know, I generally every week have on red lipstick, and I was putting it on today, and I thought to myself, like, I'm such an apostolic rebel. I always put this on. And that's just a comical example of that. But there are so many things that we have passed on through generations that have nothing to do with God and nothing to do with the original understanding. And so if we want people to keep coming to Christ, and we want people to accept the redemptive work of Christ and come back to God through reconciliation, we absolutely have to have more understanding, because people want to trust what we're saying. That's what I took from that quote.
I love it.
Truly to our African heritage, because he talked about Pan-Africanism in the other chapters, but really being able to like, this is as much a part of being Black as it is being human. This is as much a part about being a member of the human race as it is about being a part of the body of Christ, and not being able to separate the two. And I think for so long there's been that disconnect for people.
I love it. I love it. I thank you. I think that this was another great week. We're going to kind of stretch this out through the month of August. We have some questions that we have on reserve for when Pastor Cass gets here. Denisha texted me some stuff. I said, you know what? We're going to wait till Pastor Cass gets here. We're going to let him take a stab at some of that. Thank you so much for joining. There may be somebody who's going to watch the replay. So before we dismiss, press the share button. If you're a part of our YouTube family, go to YLC TV and press the share button. Get ready for Spirit and Truth tomorrow. The Portland Trail Blazers play the Memphis Grizzlies at 2:30. So we was definitely going to be off of here in enough time for me to go make my turkey and cheese sandwich, send my kids to the basement, and sit in front of the TV and watch it. So thank you so much, sis. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next week as we continue to discuss our book, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. Peace.